are here tonight with Jason Barry, going over an introduction to malware analysis. It's all you, BarrySploit.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Magos. Hey, everybody. I'm Jason Barry. You can call me Jason. You can call me Barry. Call me BarrySploit, whatever you want to do. But today, I'm going to be going over a malware sample that a buddy of mine found. He got some free one-day shipping on it. And yeah, well, it came with some good old malware from, I think, 2017. So we'll be kind of going through. It's a pretty easy sample to analyze. So going to kind of talk about best practices as well as dive in. And towards the end, the malware does have command and control capabilities. So we're actually going to take over and be able to send some commands as that C2 server. So yeah, here's my presentation. Yeah, one-day shipping on malicious USBs. So quick shout out to the guy who gave me the sample. It's a good buddy of mine, Charles Stein. If you're looking for some junior security analysts, totally give this dude a look at his LinkedIn. He's awesome. Helped me with this analysis. So, but yeah, before we actually get into, figuring out what this thing does and what makes it so evil, let's just talk about some best practices first, right? So if you're going to be following along on the analysis, make sure you're using a virtual machine that's on an isolated network. So make sure you have those network adapters set to host only. I'm going to actually be using two VMs. I'm going to be using a FlareVM, which is made by Mandiant, as well as Remnux, who I think is, I think it's open source by Lenny Seltzer and a couple other people. But both of them are made for reverse engineering, so they come with a bunch of tools pre-installed. So I'll be using both of those together. Make sure you take a clean snapshot before you run the sample, because we're going to run that sucker and see what it does. So make sure you take a clean snapshot so we can revert after you've infected your host. And be prepared. We're going to execute this thing multiple times, or in a real-world scenario, at least, when you're analyzing malware, you're going to want to control a lot of the variables that happen. So like, for example, a malware might not just reach out to one server. It might try that one. And if that one's offline, it'll reach out to another one. So it might have a bunch of chains or multiple domain names in that infection chain. So you want to control that with your sandbox. Since this malware is coming from a malicious USB, there's extra different precautions that we have to take. So obviously, if you get USBs and you're not really sure if they are malicious, the easiest way to figure that out is to just plug it into a separate physical machine that you don't really care about, right? That wasn't quite the case here. My buddy Charles had plugged it in and immediately got a Windows Defender alert. So immediately plugged it out, took it out and said, okay, all right, we need to figure out what the damages are, right? So hopefully that's not the case for you if you get some USBs that you're suspicious about. But yeah, use either a physical machine or you need to disable auto mount. And if you're concerned about they have those USB killers, right, where you plug it in and it fries your computer. I think Hack5 actually has some USB detectors for that. So if you want to test if any of those are those USB killers, you can go spend the money and do that, right? But yeah, otherwise, disable auto mount if you're using Windows, plug it in with a write blocker, and then take a forensic image, and then we can actually analyze all the files that is on that forensic image. And when I say take a forensic image, this is just something you can use FTK Imager is a free one. That's what we ended up using in this case. So these are kind of our best practices. We want to make sure that we're handling this securely, right, or in a safe environment where we're not going to hurt ourselves, right? This USB, it is classified as a worm. So if, for example, this USB, you plugged it in and got infected and it stays on your host, it's going to infect every other USB you ever plug into your computer. So it is super, super important to take all of these other precautions, right? Any questions so far? Feel free to interrupt me at any time. You're not going to hurt my feelings, I promise.
So I'm reading this slide.
Doing a great job.
I'm reading the slide. You say you got an alert when you plugged in the USB. Was Windows Defender able to, isolate the files and prevent the spread of the malware?
It did. It did not actually execute on his host. So we're good in that sense. Cool. All right. So now that we have kind of a safe place that we can analyze this, we got to figure out what is this? What does this evil thing even do? Right. And the common question I always ask myself, whether it's malware or not, even if it's like things like phishing links, these threat actors are usually taking advantage of our non-educated users, or they're trying to some social engineering to some sense. We most of the time need the user to interact with it in some way, shape, or form in order to get infected, right? Or at least that's the majority of the time it requires that user interaction. So with that, we kind of have to go in and just be like, okay, well, what would my user do? And I'm not trying to bash users here. I think it's super important to build a good relationship with users, but yeah, how would you do it? If you were untrained and you said, yeah, I got this USB, let me plug it in and see what it does, right? Follow the actions that happen and just roll with it. Then we got to figure out, where does the evil actually occur, right? Like if you're visiting a phishing site, that phishing site itself, we probably can't do anything with that, right? However, what would your user do on that site? They're going to enter their credentials, right? So then we have to go reset their password or whatnot. But there's not a whole lot we can do there. But in this case, yeah, we'll need to go figure out how this user would do this. When we're talking about analyzing it, there's kind of three major methods. And I have them ordered here from easiest to hardest. So the easiest thing to do is our static analysis. And so this is something simple as plugging it into VirusTotal, right? So you can VirusTotal or any online sandbox where it's just looking up the hash and is it already known, right? We can also look at the raw strings that are in there. Is there actually just text in there that says, hey, this is malware, don't run it, right? Does it import or export malicious or suspicious DLLs, right? Is it packed? Is it potentially, maybe it's compressed, something like that, right? So can we get anything just by looking at it without running it, right? Without executing it or anything, what were we able to find out? Once we get all the information from there, then we just be that user and we run this thing and see what it does. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with a lot of those online sandboxes like AnyRun. They're absolutely great. However, like I was mentioning earlier, sometimes there might be multiple domain names that are encoded in the malware. And so sometimes it's best if you can really control those parameters so that way you can, manipulate the DNS requests that go in. Or for some scenarios, they might have sandbox evasion techniques, right? I've seen ones where it will check if it can get out to the official Microsoft websites first before actually infecting your payload, right? And so if you see those DNS requests from the malware, maybe we want to make it so it can get to Microsoft and then try it again, right? And we just adjust it a little bit every single time, and so we can uncover what this thing fully does. And then the last thing you can do is do some pure code analysis, which isn't going to be too bad in our case, because we're going to be able to read the code. However, most of the time malware is like executables, which is a compiled code. And so we can't actually read the source. You actually have to use something like Ghidra, where it's taking the machine code and doing kind of a best guess at what their original code was. And so it can get really tricky. Variable names don't still exist. So it can get really, really time consuming. And for those compiled executables, right, it's going to take you a while. So usually static analysis and that dynamic analysis are those quick, easy wins. And even if you're not fully into reverse engineering, I think being able to do static and dynamic analysis is super important to kind of just get those quick, easy wins, right? Any other questions so far? Cool. All right, well let's go ahead and get into it then. So here's our initial attack vector, right? So off of a major online distributor, this is the actual docking station that came with the USB. So you have a MacBook, you want to run 3 monitors on there, you need some special drivers. So you're like, hey, let me go get this docking station. It comes with USB with the drivers on it. Everything's sealed from the manufacturer. Nothing's given off red flags at all. And you plug in that USB, and immediately you get that Defender pop up, right? And that's kind of where we left off. So from there, we took that image of the sample, and then that's what I'm going to be dealing with in my VM. So this is my last slide. I'm going to go into the labs. Does anybody have any other questions before we get into this?
Yeah, trying to find it. What was the reviews on this thing? Did people point out like, hey, this is malware, or there's malware present, or?
I didn't see any other reviews about it at all. You can see on here, if I pull it back up, it had 373 ratings, 4.3 stars, 400 bought in the past month. So
You think maybe potentially could be maybe like a supply chain or man in the middle?
I'm genuinely not sure, but we can see in there that the actual malicious payload itself is from, I think, like 2017. So maybe it was just a USB that got left in the warehouse somewhere and got forgotten about. I genuinely don't know. I know this has been reported back to the company, and they're apparently doing an internal investigation. So I'll update the group when I get the results.
I can't
if they even tell us.
I can tell you it's gone down $15 since that screenshot was taken.
That's good.
Yeah, just found the listing. I plugged in virus and malware inside the search for reviews, and not a single one.
Wow. Yeah, weird, right? I don't know. For everything I can think of, I mean, it seems reputable. So it's not like he's bought this thing off of Alibaba or something. Maybe then I'd be a little more suspicious, but
so it wasn't the docking station, right? It was a free USB that came with it?
Correct. Yes, it was the USB, which also came in a separate sealed package that had all of the drivers for the docking station on there. And I will say, for context sake, with MacBooks, you do have to install separate drivers to support more than either one or two monitors, depending on your CPU. So it's not all that crazy, except for the fact that there's malware on there. So just want to say real quick, I forgot the disclaimer earlier. None of these slides or information represents the ideas or thoughts of my current or former or future employers. This is all myself. So if it sucks, it's on me. All right, cool. Any other questions? Cool. All right, let's get into it. So on my desktop, can everybody see my FlareVM? Or this is Windows VM?
Yep.
Cool. So this sample.7-zip is what I put in the Discord earlier today, I believe it was. I went ahead and already unzipped it into this sample folder. So if I go in here, we'll go ahead and open it up. Initially, kind of when we were doing our initial analysis, this is all that showed up. So the two things that we saw in here initially are just these two LNK or these two shortcut files. So I'm thinking, back to if we are that uneducated user or that person who really, really needs this done, what are we going to do? We're going to click on these, right? They're the only things in here. These are the only things that show up initially when you plug in the USB, right? We could go ahead and click on it, but remember, the easiest things to do are static analysis first, right? So we could go through here, but actually, sorry, scratch that. I guess we have to figure out if these shortcuts are even what's evil, because if we're trying to find what the malicious thing is, I mean, we just got some shortcuts here. So let's see where these shortcuts go. So if I just right click and go to properties, I'm going to actually copy this out and put it onto a notepad just to be able to read it a little bit easier. But you can see here's this is where the shortcut actually goes. So the shortcut references command prompt, with these very specific arguments. So if you're not already familiar with some of this, basically the start command in command prompt launches whatever the following argument is with like the default whatever is built in for Windows. So, if it's a link, like it'll open up Edge if that's your default browser. So in this case, we're going to run whatever the default is for angrybirds.vbe. And it's got these weird kind of quotes here. And then it's chaining a second command where it's ampersand, so and start Explorer. If you're not familiar with Explorer, that's exactly what this is. Your file explorer is explorer.exe. And it's going to system volume information and exit. Okay. Well, we see the name of the link is system volume information, right? What if we take a look at the other one? What's this one go to? So here's this other one, and we can see basically the only difference between these, it still runs this VBE and then starts Explorer with this doc user guide and then exits command prompt. So this is kind of weird, right? It's launching this stuff and then we don't see this anywhere, right? So maybe the file's hidden. We can come to view. We can see we have view hidden items checked, and there's nothing here. What's just to kind of get the feel, any other ideas? We see references like this VBE and tries to open this. I'll be completely honest. When I was coming to the analysis of this, I was genuinely confused. I had no idea what was going on. It's not quite a firmware thing. It's actually kind of weird. So what I did in real time was I was like, okay, maybe there's some OSINT on this. So I kind of copied it, put it into my web browser and said, okay, angrybirds.vbe. Like, all right, yep. I see a bunch of Angry Birds virus stuff. This is probably the name of our malicious payload. But where the hell is this thing, right? Turns out, and if you didn't know this, I know I didn't, there's actually a separate setting for viewing system files inside of your file explorer. So if you go to view and then options, and then to this view tab, there's one here. Hide protected operating system files recommended. And this is on by default. I genuinely didn't know this was a thing. But as soon as you unhide those, prompts you if you want to make sure, go ahead and apply it. And now here is all of our malicious stuff. So it is like extra hidden in there. It must be some older stuff, I guess, from 2016. So, but yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, so now we know we have our actual malicious payload here. So we know this is the actual part of the malware. The other thing that we know it launches this VBE, and then it starts Explorer with each of these. So what it actually does, what this command does, is it runs this VBE, and then actually redirects the user to this folder. So if you come in here, for example, here's the driver installation, right? I think here's the latest driver package. So if we do some quick OSINT, I don't have network connectivity on here. But basically, we can throw all of this into VirusTotal, right? We can go do that static analysis, try to actually see what's in some of these. So if you look up this angrybirds.vbe, it lights up like a Christmas tree in VirusTotal. It is a known sample from 2016. That's why Defender caught it in the first place. And if you actually go into these and look at the drivers, these are the genuine drivers for installing or for using this docking station. So that's kind of our attack vector, or how our infection chain starts. Is the user comes in, plugs it in, only sees these two link files, it launches this system and hidden VBE, and then redirects the user to the actual folder. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So that's kind of how you initially get infected. Now, the next part is okay, so we know that this VBE is the malware, right? We know this is the malicious piece of software here. Technically, the LNKs are kind of the breadcrumbs for it, but we know that this is the main evil payload. Also, brutal honesty, I mean, I've seen .vbs and VBA scripts, but I've never heard of a VBScript encoded file. So immediately go to the Google machine, right? And go VBE decoder. And the first thing that comes up is somebody you're probably already familiar with is your boy John Hammond over from Huntress. And he actually has a script to do this decoding. So we could go ahead if we wanted to and download this Python script. And, he's got a decent guide for all you got to do is just point it, vbdecoder.py and point it at our file and it will actually decode it. I did go ahead and do this already because I didn't want to pull down a bunch of tools and mess up my snapshot. And the output gave us this script encoded.txt. Just to kind of show you the difference real quick, I'm going to open up a PowerShell terminal real quick. If you take a look at the angrybirds.vbe, it's complete and utter gibberish. So
You're telling me you can't read that?
Well, it's not in English, and I speak a lot of nerd languages, but this ain't it. So, I mean, I see like some of this looks like it could be base 64. I don't really know. But after running John Hammond's super great script, we end up with this decoded script. And we can actually read things now. So let me go ahead and open it in something where it's easier to read, like Notepad. And here we are. So if you're not familiar with code, it's totally okay. I've actually never written anything in Visual Basic, but I'm pretty familiar with Python, PowerShell, so I can kind of read things and take a guess at it. So if you're at that level of comfortable where you're kind of just taking educated guesses, you're on the same level as me. So congratulations. Here we are, and we can kind of work from, like, try to figure out what this thing does. So we can see it calls a couple functions. So we can see it takes hex decode and it runs it against shadows, saves that to T1. Then we run decrypt against T1 and then it executes it. Okay, so it doesn't seem too bad, right? So if we had to take some guesses just based off of the names themselves, we probably, decode from hex and then whatever this decrypt function does. And here's the actual payload, everything in shadows, right? So here's this big ol' glob of goodness. Pure and utter goodness. So let's go ahead and copy this, and we're going to put it into the best tool ever, CyberChef. And we know that this is obfuscated. If you're not familiar with the term obfuscated, it just means that basically we can't understand what it is, right? This is not something that's readable. So it's obfuscated. So we need to deobfuscate it. So let's do this. Let's go back to our VM and let's see what exactly it does. So first it calls hex decode. So let's go see if we can find the function for hex decode. Go, and I see here's function decrypt. Here's function decode base 64. And here's function hex decode. So admittedly, this looks like a total bunch of gibberish. However, I did use ChatGPT, kind of threw this in here and said, what does this mid function do? And basically, all this is doing here is it's looping through our shadows, right? It's looping through this. And as it goes through, right, as long as it is not a % sign, it's going to keep on moving. It's going to keep adding it. So basically all it's doing here actually is just removing the percent signs. So if we come back to CyberChef, we can do a find replace and just remove the percent signs just like it did there, right? So if we remove all the percent signs, now here we are, right? Here's our results. Okay, well, what does the code do with this next? And we're just going to keep walking this through until we actually see what the original or malicious code is that was executed. Okay, so we know that it removes these percent signs. What does it do next? We come back on here. We look back at the beginning. It did the hex decode, and then it called decrypt, and then executed it, right? So what does decrypt do? Let's go take a look. Here's our function decrypt, and decrypt does decode base 64. So I'm just going to kind of assume that all this does base 64 decoding. So let's do this. Oh, we forgot to do from hex. Right. Yeah, it said decode hex. So we remove this, and then we're left with a bunch of hexadecimal characters. And we can do from hex. And now we're left with some base 64. We do that last tiny bit from base 64. Here we are. We have our actual final payload. And you can even see in the very beginning exactly what the host name as well as the port number and some of the other parameters that they're putting in here, right? So where does it install? And immediately we have some indicators of compromise, right? If we were working in a real incident and we needed to figure out what all hosts were infected with this, we could go find out what all hosts had reached out to this dmaria.zapto.org, right? This domain is no longer online, so don't worry about it. Yeah, so now we have our final payload, and we see in here that as soon as it gets to there, it executes it. So now we have our final code, right? We have our actual malicious final payload, and we can figure out exactly what that does if we wanted to go the code analysis route. Any questions so far? I know I kind of just flew through hex decoding and doing from base 64.
I don't have a question, but just random thing prior about the Amazon listing. There's a user Charles from May 20th who literally said it was malware too.
Oh yeah, that's probably my buddy Charles.
No, it is.
Probably.
Yeah, regarding your process here, that you say you went through it quickly, but I thought that was fairly straightforward in terms of your thinking there. So
yeah, kind of just following it through, doing exactly what it does. If this was some other type of script, like for example, if you're dealing with JavaScript or PowerShell, there's other tools you can use. But another really easy win is I don't know Visual Basic like that, so if somebody else knows. But a lot of times when I'm trying to deobfuscate malware, what I'll do is I'll take where it executes it and just turn that into like a print function. So instead of it running the code, it just prints it out to the screen. And then bam, there you go. You have the final deobfuscated payload. So that's another way you can kind of go through the same exact thing. But this is us kind of just understanding how this infection chain works. And if we wanted to go through this full analysis of going through the code, that's how we would do it. Yeah, but the biggest thing is for static analysis is maybe getting to this point and then saying, yeah, this doesn't look like normal code. No developer I know is going to have a big chunk like this. So immediately you can kind of say, yeah, this is super suspicious and likely malicious, right? So that's kind of all we're doing with that bit of static analysis. So
yeah, real fast, Jason, do you want to touch on why malware authors would potentially want to obfuscate their code?
Yeah, and it's strictly to stop people like us from being able to examine it and be able to find things like the domain names or port numbers that they go through, right? I mean, this guy probably wasn't trying to hide it so much. He even has a Skype thing in here. I did doing some more digging, this is actually dubbed the Houdini worm. So if you take a look at my official write-up, you'll see I reference it as that. But yeah, malware authors do that all the time, partially to bypass like your antiviruses, because a lot of times if you put a ton of obfuscation, right, and obfuscation is this crazy nonsense, and it has to keep transforming this data over and over and over again. Traditional antiviruses may say, hey, this is taking up too much time and it doesn't want to have an impact on the user, and so it may just let it run and see if something happens later. That's kind of that constant balance between operations and security. So a lot of traditional AVs, if there's tons of obfuscation, may just let something run. Yeah, so Defender bypasses are pretty easy with lots of obfuscation. So I'm sure at the time this was revolutionary. Sorry, go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, and from a like an observation standpoint, like for actual analysts doing analysis, it's generally to throw you off and take the less educated analysts to say, hey, like I look at this thing, I don't exactly know what that thing is. I'm just going to like kind of brush it off. The low hanging fruit, kind of get rid of you.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. It just more and more anti-defenses, right? So awesome. Yeah, good point. Any other questions so far? Cool. All right, so we kind of checked the box there on static analysis, right? The next thing that came was our dynamic analysis, right? Which is just running that sucker and seeing what happens. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up a couple of tools so that we can actually monitor our environment and see what happens when we execute this thing. Because it's really easy to just run it. And, unless it's like ransomware and if something pops up in front of your screen that says like, hey, you've been hacked, we might not know exactly what happens, right? A lot of malware sets things like persistence so that it runs every time your computer starts up. And because of that, we might not see that just as a user if we're just staring at the desktop. So we're going to set up some other tools real quick. So like one I like to do is ProcWatch. This will look for any new processes. Another one that I like is Procmon. If you're familiar with Procmon. I should probably start ProcWatch last. I do want to say that because it is Visual Basic or VBE, right? Visual Basic as well as JavaScript gets ran using the built-in W script. So W script is what actually is going to be launching our malware. So you can see here I set a process name is W script. I also set command prompt because I'm going to launch it from command prompt. And I don't know why architecture is command prompt. We could probably uncheck that. And we can set all that up. And now you can see, so if you're not familiar with Procmon, the easy things, this square is capture. This one is clearing it. So if you have a bunch of events and you want to clear it, you press that one. And if you want to edit your filter, you click on this filter button and it pops up with this box. So we're just doing process name is W script or the process name is command prompt. And we're not capturing. We'll start that right before we execute it. And then lastly, I'm going to launch, I think I have Process Explorer, or I guess we'll just use good old Task Manager. Why not? I don't think I have Process Hacker on here. So, all right, this will work for now. We could also do another one that I like to run is RegShot. What RegShot does is it takes a snapshot of your registry before, and then you take another snapshot after you run the malware, and it compares the two and tells you what's changed. So that one's super cool. But you know what? Yeah, let's do it. Why not? I don't remember if this one has run key persistence or not. So all we have to do once we have it booted up is click first shot. And you can see it's capturing all the keys and values. And in the meantime, I know I mentioned at the beginning I had it set up where Remnux is a separate machine. I currently have it so that all of my network traffic from FlareVM, both network traffic as well as DNS requests, are going to my Remnux. And I'm going to basically simulate the internet with Remnux. There's a bunch of guides out there for doing that. If you have questions afterwards, let me know. But if you don't have it set up like this, you can run Wireshark on top of FlareVM as well. Wireshark is a tool that captures all the network traffic going in and out of your device. So we'll be able to see everything, including web requests, DNS requests, leaving our VM. I'm going to actually run it from Remnux. So I'm going to do Wireshark. And if you put the ampersand, it runs it in the background. So I have Wireshark here. And then the other thing that I'm going to do, we can leave this for now. So we have our first shot done. We have our procmon up. We're taking a look at our processes here. So I think we're ready to run this thing.
Reopen procwatch.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Awesome. All right, so here we are. We're going to be our user and click on our LNKs. Let's go ahead and start capturing. So we're going to start capturing in Process Monitor, and we're also going to start capturing with Wireshark. And let's launch this sucker. Make sure you take a snapshot if you don't already have one. And yeah, we'll go ahead and run it. And here we can see a bunch of stuff happens. Stuff is going on. Just like we saw with the shortcut, it's now reopened up a new file explorer where we're actually, in the actual legitimate user guide. Yeah, and we'll kind of let it run. Some malware usually takes like a couple minutes to run. Sometimes it'll do some sandbox evasion stuff where it won't execute right away. It'll have like a sleep where it sleeps for a few minutes first. So usually kind of best habit is let it run for a couple minutes and we'll kind of take a look and see what happens. We can kind of start scrolling through here initially. We can see, here's the command prompt, right, that got initially ran. And then here's it running WScript. And over on the side, we can actually see the parameters that it got started with. So process create. Here's our command line. And you can see the command line is WScript, and then it's referencing that angrybirds.vbe. So here's the actual start of our malware, right? There's that process create for it. We can kind of scroll through here. I'm kind of just looking at the operations. All of these buttons up here, if we click show network activity, it'll start showing us network things. If we're looking for file system activity, we can select that one as well. Let's also do registry. So make sure you have all of these on so we can see all of the different events. All right, let me refine that process create. It's querying a lot of registry keys. Oh, actually, I got to a pretty good point here. Here's WScript creating the run key. So if you're not already familiar, the run key is one of the most common forms of persistence. This one, H key current user. So every time this current user logs in, it runs everything inside of this run key. So we could actually go see what the value of that is if we wanted. Actually, I think it shows it right here. So here's the name of the key. So inside of run, the key name is Angry Birds, and the value is WScript //b, and then referencing angrybirds.vbe, but this one's actually in a different location. You can see the file location on this one is user angrybirds.vbe, and it's not referencing the one in my desktop. So I wonder if it created it somewhere else. Oh, yep, here's the create file. Look at that. That's crazy. You can also see here's another form of persistence. We even got, here's the startup folder, putting the VBE script in there. So now we've already identified 2 forms of persistence. Just from even scrolling. All right, let's go ahead and stop all of our captures. I'm going to go stop it on Wireshark as well. And we can take our second snapshot. Take our second shot there from RegShot. And then we can kind of take a look. All right. Is this thing still running? First off, let's take a look at ProcWatch. So here's command prompt that got executed. This is when we first launched it. Here's where it launched VBScript. And it doesn't show anything for these, but we can see Explorer is still running. Looks like VBScript might not still be running. And if we take a look in here, I don't know. Maybe it is still running because it's showing it right here. This is VBScript for sure. So yeah, VBScript is still running on our hosts. So it's just staying running. Let's go ahead and actually kill that for now. And then we'll take a look at everything that we've done. So we know it launches VBScript and it launches 2 forms of persistence, right? We can go ahead and go set that. Like if we're doing a write-up, those are some things we immediately want to take note of, right? We can even see it tries to, this is HKey local machine. So this one's current user, and this one's for the local machine. This one's machine-wide run key, and this one is just for the user. So it created the one for the user and tried for the machine, but it didn't have access. You can see it says access denied. So yeah, we could keep scrolling through here and look at all these if we wanted to, but that's a lot of work, so let's not do that. So let's take a look at Wireshark. We already have a couple quick, easy wins off of this one. I think we found the big bits, right? We found persistence. Let's compare our registry. We'll be able to see those and see if anything else happens. I don't know how long this is going to take. Let's go to Wireshark in the meantime. All right, so here we are in Wireshark. One of the first things I usually like to do is take a look at DNS requests. So if we go to DNS, here we can see we're querying a Microsoft domain. This might be legitimate. This might not be from that specific process. But here we can see that domain name that we saw in the actual code, this dmaria.zapdo.org, and it keeps sending DNS requests for these over and over and over again. Seems like it's just continually going. If we actually change the time format, we can actually, it looks like every single one of these is only just maybe a few seconds apart from each other. So yeah, it looks like it's definitely continually trying to reach out. So here's another IOC for us. Now, I mentioned that we'll want to run this multiple times and change it up every time we go. So what we'll actually do is we'll set it so that this domain name is going to be us. So we'll start spoofing some stuff here. Well, let's just double check. Where did our output go from RegShot? Did it put it into a text file for me? App data local temp. App data local temp. And is that what this is? Said it was going to put it as a text file. Is it just not done? Confused. That's not it. Yeah, okay. Well, weird that it didn't actually output it. Okay, well, rip. Sorry, RegShot. We're going to kill you today. All right. Now, I know Process Monitor can be really confusing. There is a tool. I don't know if I have it installed, but the CFF Explorer, it's actually so awesome. If this is a struggle for you to read, you can save this. Let's do. I'm going to save this to my desktop real quick. We'll just save it as a CSV. But basically, CFF Explorer is actually just a graphical way to visualize what's going on. So if I export this as a CSV, and then we open up CFF Explorer, we go ahead and open that log file that we just saved. Still saving, I guess. Is this not the CFF Explorer? This is totally not the same one that I'm used to. I'm so sorry. I was trying to do this on the fly because I've used this in the past and it's really great. But typically it gives you... This must not be the right tool. This must be a different thing. All right. Sorry about that. CFF Explorer, I must just be doing something wrong. But usually it gives you a graphical interface for everything that we see from Procmon. So it'll actually show you all the process trees and the registry keys that it's touching, etc. I'll figure that out and I'll put it into meetup.txt. So, but yeah, we can go through and see. It looks like it creates this file. And we can see it reaches out. We're doing some TCP IP stuff, checking more registry keys. I'm looking for kind of sub processes, but I'm not actually seeing anything. Anything else anybody else can think of for things we would want to check for when this thing runs? I mean, I think persistence is probably the biggest thing. We know it reaches out to that domain. Cool. All right. If there's no other suggestions, what we'll do, I'm going to go ahead and revert this to the snapshot. And then what we're going to do is we're going to simulate a DNS server using Remnux. And the way we're going to do that is super, super easy. You're just going to run inetsim. And what this actually does, you can see all of the different services that it's spoofing for you. So in this case, we're spoofing DNS, we're spoofing FTP, HTTP, HTTPS, email servers. It's trying to simulate genuine internet. And so what this is going to do is it's going to, every single DNS request that comes in, it's going to say, hey, you're trying to go to google.com. Oh yeah, that's me. Don't worry. And we're going to capture every request that would be going out to all those other domains. So the idea here is that when it sends out this DNS request, it's actually going to say, oh yeah, that domain. Yeah, that's our IP address. Reach out to this one. So we're DNS poisoning. Is basically what we're doing. And we're going to intercept all that traffic and pretend like we're that domain. Any questions so far? Cool. All right, so we have this. We know that clicking on these LNKs launches our malware. So let's go ahead. We'll start capturing on Wireshark one more time. Get rid of my DNS filter. And we'll go ahead and infect ourselves again. So we'll go ahead and run this. We know that it runs that VBE and then pops up with this. And if we come here, we can actually see the DNS requests that came in. So where's that DNS? Did we miss it? Oh, we must have missed the DNS request. Weird. Well, regardless, we know that we reach out for DNS and we go to that domain, and then it's going to respond back and say, oh yeah, that's my IP, right? And then what happens here is we can actually see this 1.5 is our FlareVM, and it is constantly trying to reach out to us over port 1644. So in Wireshark, here we have the source port and the destination port. I know this is like kind of small. Maybe we can make it a little bigger. But it's reaching out over, ephemeral port to port 1644. And we keep getting these RST ACK requests coming back. And we can see these kind of go over and over and just keep happening every single time, right? And so immediately that's suspicious to us. This is probably what our malware is trying to communicate over, right? This weird non-standard 1644 port. That's also exactly what we saw in CyberChef. So this kind of just confirms our finding there. So once we have this, we know that it's reaching out over this port. What we can actually do is just set a listener on that port and listen for the actual communications coming in. So if you may have done this on Kali Linux in the past, if you try to get like a reverse shell where you use like netcat to listen on a specific port. But basically the syntax for that is NC for netcat. You're going to do LNVP and then the port that you want to listen on. So in this case, we're going to listen on 1644, I think it was. Yep. We'll go ahead and listen on that port. And we can actually see this is the web request that came in from our infected host. So if you're familiar with HTTP requests at all, we got a post request coming in. It's going to /isReady. And our user agent is this weird string here. So what this is actually doing is the malware is actually enumerating information off of our hosts. This is actually how it tracks the endpoints that it's in control of. So this is our agent ID. This is our host name. This is our username. This is the product that we're running. I don't know what the plus is. This is our antivirus that we're running. I don't know what the false is. And I think this is our infection date. But all of that is in this user agent field that's being sent to that C2 server. We can also see it adds another one called UA CPU, telling us what type of CPU we have. And then we can see that host header that comes with pretty much every web request. But here's that post. We can see this is the communication that goes out saying, hey, do you have any commands for me? Hey, do you have any commands for me? This is it beaconing out to the host. And if we keep our listener up, we'll keep getting those every time it beacons. Does this make sense? Any questions?
Would you try to go much farther and actually, I guess, reverse engineer what it's trying to read from the server?
Oh, hail to the yeah, boy. That's exactly where I was going next. So I actually went through and took the time to go through this VBS and figure out what does this thing do. So I want to kind of give you the high level overview. If you want to dig into it some more, I have a full write-up on the entire process as well as all the functions and what they do. But to give you kind of the high level, as it goes through, it has this splitter that we saw where it is the kind of less than a pipe and then the greater than, right? We saw that as the separator in our listener, right? We see that as the separator here. So this is just it in code form. And as it goes through, it runs this instance function and then creates an infinite loop. So while true, which is always going to be true. It runs install, and then it starts, it looks like it sends out some responses, right? We see post, we see is ready, where we saw that, oh, sorry, wrong screen. We saw that in here, right? We see post is ready. So we're on the right track. So here's it sending out post is ready. And then it's taking the response, going to split it up. And then here are all the actual commands that the attacker can run. So it can run execute, and then it runs some whatever. You can run update, and it actually goes through and tries to install it again, and it runs it one more time. You can do an uninstall. You can send files there. You can upload files from there. There's a enumerating process. You can get a command shell. You can delete things, kill processes, make it sleep for longer. These are all the different commands that the attacker can run. Before we start playing with some of the commands, I want to remember the first thing that it did was run this instance and then install. And this is where some real evil happens. So this install function actually goes through and it checks every drive on your computer. So every time this malware runs, which is going to be every time on boot up, and then probably running regularly, it's going to check for drives that are ready, that have some free space. And then I had to look this up, but basically this checks if it's a removable drive. So if you have a removable drive that has any sort of free space, it's going to go through, enumerate every single shortcut on that host, take that shortcut, and just like we saw earlier, where it takes that shortcut and has it run the malicious payload and then takes you there, every shortcut on that drive is going to be replaced with a similar LNK. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to drop itself into the root of the drive. So just like how we saw in the, when we had the image here, the VBE was at the base, but not in any of the subfolders. It's going to do that same thing to your other USBs. It goes through and does exactly that, creates all those things. And then the actual install is what sets all of that persistence. So that's what goes through and sets the run key, as well as that startup folder. It's even kind of weird because it has a option where it like sets it in the registry, like checking if USB spreading is set to true. I don't know why it does that. So maybe there's variants of it out there that don't do USB spreading. Just that's pretty much what it does for spreading wise. But kind of to cap this all off, let's go ahead and see what it looks like if we were to pretend we're the command and control server and send some command. So I'm just going to do enum process because that's probably going to be the easiest one. But let's see what we can do. So I'm going to go ahead and kill my listener. We're going to open it up one more time, wait for it to check in. And then we're going to do exactly like we would do as the attacker and do enum process. We'll send that command back. And if I create another listener, we might get the results. This was not the results. So let's try enum process. And let's put the splitter there. And then we'll start our listener one more time. And I if somebody has a pro tip for how to keep it looking for new connections for Netcat, greatly appreciated. But otherwise, here's literally all the processes and their process IDs that are running on the system. So this is exactly what the attackers would be able to do. And if they wanted to in this case, they'd be able to see if you're running some EDR tool, right? This is where they'd be able to do that analysis and see, kind of get the lay of the land and then start doing attacks on objective, right? So we know this thing has upload execution capabilities, and it also infects all the other USBs you plug into your device, right? So, that's pretty damn malicious, especially if they have that C2 capabilities. They could go sell that access to somebody on the dark web, be that initial access broker, and maybe they're selling that to somebody who wants to infect your system with ransomware, depending on who you are and what your system is. So, that's kind of the Houdini worm and this Angry Birds infection chain from this random USB off of Amazon. But that's all I got for the analysis. I'm not going to go through the code stuff. If you want to do that, I'll drop a link to my write-up. But that's doing static and dynamic analysis to kind of figure out what this thing does.
Well, very cool. Hey, Barry, I just want to make sure I was trying to understand your question. You were trying to make sure that you could keep listening for continued connections in Netcat?
Yeah, is it -K? I saw you.
Yeah, so that's in Netcat itself. It's not reliable. You can try to do a -K, but in NCAT, it does work properly.
Try that. Yeah, I was trying to play with this yesterday, and it seemed like I was only getting. I don't have network connection on here.
Yeah. I mean, you could try it with Netcat. I just don't like it. It's known as being It's right there to keep inbound sockets open for multiple connects.
Let's see if it works. Yeah, I was trying to play with this the other day, and I was only getting it to. It wasn't getting the responses. I had to like kill Netcat and then start it back up again for some
Yeah.
reason.
Okay. Just a thought. You might want to try playing with it in NCAT one of these days.
Yeah,
and see if it'll work.
I'll get that installed and see if I can get that to work.
But you could see through Wireshark the response at least.
Yeah.
If this is
yeah.
right.
I'm not. I'm not capturing it at the moment. Let's see. Support 53.
Unless it encrypts it, I guess.
I don't think so. It's HTTP, not HTTPS.
Oh,
so,
okay, yeah. Yeah, never mind. That should be fine.
Is this thing just like not? Yeah, see, and now it starts reaching out back again. So, yeah, I don't get it. It's like it creates the connection, and then for some reason, like, it stops there. It's just like, oh, connection, I established the connection, thanks.
Yeah.
Weird.
So.
But yeah, that's my talk. So hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully it's not too... truthfully, running the thing and just running some tools to see what it does is not too crazy intimidating. And the only way to get better at this stuff is to do it. So hopefully
great
this...
job, by the way, man.
Appreciate
That's
it.
great.
Yeah,
That was
Yeah,
awesome.
that's really cool.
Jason, question for you.
What's
If a person or individual wanted to, couldn't they modify some of the artifacts of the malware to then essentially take over or have their own variant of Houdini?
Yep.
So say if they wanted to change the communicating server, they could change it to their domain, a different port number, maybe do additional processes and change maybe a couple things within that script.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the link. Microsoft actually has like a threat intel article on this, and this domain name as well. Their write-up didn't have this domain, as well as it said it only had like 3 commands that the C2 could run. So I think this is kind of a newer. I shouldn't say newer. It's from 2016 or 2017, but I guess newer than what their write-up was. So. Yeah, but I'm sure they could probably change it. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it seems like multiple people have hit up this Houdini guy on Skype and been like, "Hey, dude, hook it up." So